And voila, we are recording. So, okay. So yeah, like I said, last time we talked about crypto wallets, and crypto wallets are very important to get into understanding sort of the nitty gritty, because you're going to be able to, in the future, harness some of the coins that we're mining with Zeno into your own respective wallets. At least that's the goal. We want to be able to give that option for you guys. So if you haven't secured your own wallets on these different blockchains like Cadena, Nervos, etc., go ahead and check that video out. It'll give you some options to choose. You also have the slides for your own convenience if you don't want to watch the whole video. These are sort of things that you want to be prepared for, because now we already got our mining solutions going. So we have about 10 miners up and running. And that's very exciting. So we can't wait to continue with the other 20 before we move on to phase 3. Things are looking really good for us. So we want to make sure that you're all set up to go so that you're not missing out on any rewards or any of that sort. And you want to be able to claim them as soon as possible. So with that, I want to talk a little bit more about security and just like a basics on this first. We can get into more security measures later on, but I want to make sure that we have a little bit of an understanding of certain best practices as we move forward into blockchain space or Web3. That way you guys have a way of, understanding what's a scam, or how do you, further secure your crypto, okay? Do we have any questions or thoughts before we move forward? Is there anything about crypto wallets that anybody wanted to recap? Just you're feel free to shout it out or write it in the chat. Or if you're good, just give me a thumbs up. Okay. All right, so let's get into it. All right, here's the security basics presentation. All right, so keeping your investments or crypto investments safe is definitely one of the most important considerations you want to have for anybody, and not just newcomers, right? I mean, even if you are an experienced veteran, I've known some people who are veterans and still haven't taken certain security measures. And sometimes it's just because they don't know, and that's okay. I would hope that if your ignorance on security is, a long-standing one, I'm guessing it's mostly because of luck that somebody hasn't hacked your account or any of that stuff. So I want to just make sure that we're all taking those measures, because I've had, seen many horror stories happen in blockchain space, and I mean, some people have really taken a big fall for it. We don't want to do that. We're in this for the long haul, right? I mean, especially at a project like Zeno, where, the initial investment, you're waiting 5 years for even something like a $50,000 reward. So this is a long-term investment. So if you're going to be here, this is definitely something you want to pay attention to. So here are a couple of checklists that we're going to go over today. It's basically a security guide to cover everything from keeping your crypto safe on centralized exchanges to anything from unauthorized logins to transferring your assets to a secure offline storage solution. And we'll go on from there. So I want to take a little bit of a look into what blockchain security looks like, the crypto security checklist of avoiding things like fake sites and applications and how to manage that. Actively managing your exchange authentication methods so that nobody can access your exchange account when you're on something like a Coinbase or KuCoin or anything like that. Also, two-factor authentication, why that's important versus something like just a text message. Void scams and phishing attempts, how to spot those. Wallet authentication and key storage best practices, and of course incorporating a whitelist into your security checklist. Okay, so let's talk about blockchain security first. When beginning your journey here, we want to have a handful of blockchain security tips to follow to ensure a safe experience. Most of them are going to entail the same common sense practices that you would normally apply to any other web service. Unique passwords, even like more, stronger passwords are always really, really helpful. People can do brute force hacks very easily nowadays. And that's going to be something that can help, mitigate more attempts on your account. And especially if you're using something in cryptocurrency, if you're using the same password that you would use for something like your banking in traditional finance, that's a risk because, a lot of things out there are accessible with your email address. And if you're using the same email address for your bank account, we don't want to have that happen, do we? So you want to keep your login credentials safe and private. Use secure network access to your crypto portfolios. There is a great, computer company called Prism, and what they do, this is just it's kind of like an offshoot of many different types of companies that are out there. But what they do is they create laptops and cellular devices that are privacy focused first. So if you're someone who wants to separate your personal computing versus your crypto computing, I highly recommend looking into something like them. They created I think it's called the Librem phone, and then their Prism is the computer itself, I believe, or that's the software that they're using. I forget exactly what it is. I don't have one myself, but I know people who do, and they swear by it for the best kind of security measures, because they're what's different about these kinds of computers is that they actually have kill switches for their sensors. So your Wi-Fi, your internet, your camera, they have all these different types of kill switches, so they'll actually disconnect the physical wiring from your computer, so it won't ever have a connection unless you want it to. So this is a very, very good way if you want to keep, like a cold storage wallet offline and never accessing the internet unless you have to. That's a really, really good way to do it. So also you have VPNs, right? VPNs are really great because then they at least hide your IP address, and if people can hack your IP address, they have access to everything that's in your home security network. So that's very, very bad. We don't want to do that. I use Deeper Network as my own personal VPN. I find it to be a really, really useful and very effective VPN, which has a 7-layer firewall attached to it. And it's also a miner as well, so which is great. I love it. If you're not familiar with Deeper Network, take a look at it. It's a great program. I've been using them for several years now. So anyway, phishing attempts and fake apps or websites, these are honestly the most wary types of places you want to be aware of, okay? Because more often than not, it's going to be because of user error that you lose your crypto, okay? You could be the smartest guy in the world, and one day you just slip up because maybe you were having an emotional day and you were going too fast, or, you didn't double check your work, all this kind of stuff, right? We're human. It's going to be most of the time that it was your fault. And that's just the sad truth. And so we want to be very, very, very careful. And which is why it's very good to have multiple steps of making a transaction. Let's say, for example, like using a hardware wallet or whatever, because now you have an additional step that needs to be taken, which can also be that critical step which makes you rethink about what you're doing, right? So if something looks fishy and you press, send, and then all of a sudden your hardware wallet says, oh, do you actually want to send? And you're like, maybe actually I don't. You can cancel the transaction, okay? It's a little bit more steps in the way of making a transaction, but it's a security measure. It gives you a second to think about what you're doing. Okay, so here are a few extra steps that we want to consider, right? Enabling two-factor authentication, setting protections for sending or spending crypto, and even using ultra-secure cold wallet storage for your digital assets. Okay. Any questions before we get into fake sites and apps? Okay. So, keeping a mental security checklist and employing the same common sense and due diligence you would with any other web service when you're engaging with Web3 is going to be really paramount. So, there are going to be a lot of fake apps and websites that try to mimic today's most trusted services. If you're downloading a crypto exchange mobile app, for example, be sure it's an authentic application. Take a look at the popularity, the reviews, the authentic branding, right? For example, if you go and try and download MetaMask, they got a little check mark on the Google extension store. Make sure you see things like that, and make sure you're double checking the links. Make sure you're going to the official pages. Okay. There are so many scams out there. I've seen them all over the place. It could be an NFT project. It could be a cryptocurrency project. It could be anything. It could be a whole entire exchange like FTX. So we want to make sure that we want to, just double check that the link that we're going to is legit. I mean, how many times have you seen someone, or maybe yourself, you were excited about a product because there was a deal on it, and all of a sudden you're taken to this weird link. The branding looks the same, but the link is different, right? And you make a purchase and you realize you just gave your money to a scammer, right? Even back in Web 2, this was such an issue. Now, even more so with Web 3, because now, because of a decentralized economy, people are like, oh, let's go ahead and take your crypto. There's no cops, right? We want to just take your stuff. And that's why crypto is so rampant with things like scams, because it really is like the Wild West, and I would not want to live in the Wild West during the time, and this is very much kind of like that in a digital age. All right, so the same is true for visiting crypto websites and cryptocurrency exchanges on a desktop computer. Make sure the sites are legitimate. Fake and unregulated cryptocurrency exchanges often scam potential victims by posing as legitimate exchanges with similar looking URLs, etc. There's a very, very common approach to what I see when it comes to exchange scams. You may have seen, as you're browsing Web3, you get a message and all of a sudden they say, hey, you've just won zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. Go log in, create an account on this exchange, and then you can claim it and send it back to your wallet. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. And then you go ahead and you make an account. And then they said, oh, you need to deposit a certain amount in order to activate your account. And if you see that, yeah, that's a scam. That's totally a scam. So don't fall for those. There's so many of those out there. And they twist them over. They turn them over real quick, man. It's very, very, very fast. Just be careful. You get any messages, anybody who sends you a direct message right out of the blue, just immediately consider it to be a scam unless you actually know the person, okay? Sometimes even if you know the person, their thing gets hacked. Just make sure that you're looking at the information that they're providing you and whether or not that information is, does it sound like it's the person who's talking to you? Are they actually affiliated with this thing that they're presenting to you? That's another thing too. So, and most people who are avid Web3 users, they're going to be very, very on top of their security for most things. Two-factor authentication and all that stuff. I absolutely employ that in my own accounts. I go the extra mile, man. I gotta use security keys and all that kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that soon too. Let's talk about exchange authentication. So before you set up a user account with a crypto exchange, just consider creating a new email address that's unrelated to your other email addresses that you can use solely for engaging with crypto. This is, again, the same thing that I was talking about where, if you have the same email address on Coinbase versus, Chase bank account, that can be a security issue. Just make sure that this is not obviously something that you have to do. Some people really like to minimize all the accounts that they have, but this is something that you can consider, right? And some people actually really like to do this. So just consider that. Many users have only one email account, but it can pose a risk if the company you use an email address is hacked or if your email account password is hacked from anywhere else on the internet. I would at least consider making your crypto stuff, a different password or a different email address or both versus things like your traditional finance stuff. At least that. I think that's a very, very good, even just on the password level, just a different password to get into your bank account versus going into your cryptocurrency accounts. It's going to really, really save you in the long run. You should also take care to actively manage your login credentials. The average internet user has dozens of online accounts, many of which can be accessed using the same password. So it's no surprise that more than a quarter of data breaches are caused by weak and repetitive passwords. Your exchange authentication methods, including using passwords, should be unique and not repeated on other online passwords. And if you have something like password managers, this can be a very, very helpful tool. I personally like Kaspersky antivirus and password manager software. They're very, very good. They're like of the top line. If I could, rank any sort of security software, Kaspersky. I think it's a Russian application, but whatever. I'm an American. Who cares? Any questions before I move forward? All right. Talking about two-factor authentication, okay? If you've set an exchange account with a dedicated email address and unique password, two-factor authentication for login and transferring assets is very, very, very good. Specifically, my favorite crypto exchange is KuCoin, because KuCoin, even in many ways, I love Coinbase as well, but Coinbase, I mean, they hate their fees. They're just atrocious. But their security measures on Coinbase is actually really good too. And I'll get back to Coinbase in a second when I talk about security keys. But KuCoin specifically is even better because there's more layers to their security measures, right? You don't have to KYC on KuCoin, which is amazing, but you have the option of attaching two-factor authentications for different actions on your account. So every time you make a trade, you have a two-factor authentication PIN code that you can use. Then for every time you want to send crypto, you have another authentication for that. Every time you log in, there's a different authentication procedure for that, right? It's all in so many security levels that you can make your KuCoin like basically impenetrable. It's so good. I really appreciate what they have. I look to KuCoin as a standard for other crypto exchanges when it comes to security. And that's one of the reasons why I use it so much more often than I do other types of things. Now, of course, KuCoin doesn't mean that your crypto's safe in KuCoin because, your money in KuCoin technically is KuCoin's money, right? So if they decide they want to pause transactions on Bitcoin exchanges, they can do that. So I always say self-custody is the best, and that's why I have a hardware wallet for that. But, when I need to do an exchange and I need to do this real safely and securely and quickly with a centralized entity, KuCoin is my go-to. And they use Google Authenticator and SMS and all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing about SMS. I mean, you can get a SIM card swap attack. Somebody can just exchange their stuff, if you're not looking. And you got a thief nearby who really wants to get your crypto and they know you. I mean, this is an example of somebody just completely swapping your SIM card or hacking it. This is more often than not a very popular way for hackers to get into your personal accounts because so many of your accounts use text message authentication. Which is why I really strongly recommend using something like Google two-factor authentication or something of that sort because it's tied to the device that you're using. So, and if you decide that you want to, change your device, you have to go and use your email to then set that up on a different account, and you have to verify all this kind of stuff to make it happen. It's much more of a roundabout procedure than just, a SIM card swap or a SIM card hack. So I don't necessarily recommend SMS, although it is a very good first line of defense. but for perpetual security, use things like authentication apps like Authy, Google Authenticator, etc., or use security keys. Now, once connected, that app generates a code that expires every 60 seconds. So, rather than, for example, on an SMS, many of those codes are available for like 5 minutes, some for even 30 minutes. It's kind of crazy. So, you got that going and somebody has access to your text messages, whoops, then they have access to your account. So allowing only one device to access the two-factor authentication protects users in the event that they are a victim of a SIM swap attack. So for this reason, two-factor authentication apps don't rely on text messages. You should never give anybody your authentication code. That is not something that you should ever do. If you're on the phone, I mean, think about it, when you get all these scam calls, right? I mean, everybody gets scam calls, right? So when you get called and somebody goes like, oh, we have to do this with your account. We need to access it. Can you give us the code to access your account? No. You tell them, go fuck yourself. This is my my security measure I'm taking. Don't use anybody to access your account. Never. Okay. Okay. So hardware security keys. So security keys like YubiKey, that's what I use. They allow you to plug into your computer via a USB port. They provide a really great strong level of protection by delivering hardware-backed cryptographic proof of your identity. Essentially what it is you get a key. It looks like a flash drive in a sense, and it just plugs into your computer and you touch it. And once you touch the biometric scanner or whatever, it sends a signal that opens a channel for your computer to be able to do a certain type of action. I do this through every level of my computing. So, because I operate a studio here at home, it's very important that my studio is also very secure on its data. So you can't access my computer unless you have my security key. And you can't access my email unless you have my security key. You can't access my Coinbase unless you have my security key. It's a physical device. You'd have to actually come and get it from me to do it. And then also on top of that, know all of my information. So it's just like a hardware device, right? A hardware wallet where you need to utilize a device to approve any sort of transaction or transmission of data on that device or account. Now, they ensure that only the holder of the physical hardware key can gain access to an associated account, even if you have a password or successfully executed SIM swap attack on your mobile device. That is so key. It allows me to sleep at night hearing that, right? This mitigates the risk posed by phishing, person in the middle, and replay attacks that rely on stolen passwords or one-time password codes, OTP. Now, it is recommended to buy more than one security key just in case you lose it. If you rely on a security key, losing it could mean permanently losing access to your account. So I always I have a key on me at all times, and then I also have a key at home. Okay, it's one of those things where damn, I lost this because I dropped my key in the freaking river, whatever, right? I have a backup and I can still access my account, and then I would buy another key, attribute that key to my account, and now I have two keys once again, right? But never go with just one key. You always get a second, a backup. Otherwise, again, you could risk losing everything. We don't want that to happen to you. I mean, the positive is that you'll never have it hacked, but you'll also never be able to retrieve your crypto either. So let's not do that. Any questions? Wonderful. All right. let's keep going. Scams and phishing. So we got to make every effort to avoid common phishing scams. Of course, during a phishing scam, a malicious actor impersonates a credible authority figure or organization in an attempt to trick a victim into disclosing sensitive information or granting unauthorized access to their funds. The messaging in a phishing attack usually expresses some form of urgency and can be delivered via misleading phone calls, text messages, advertisements, emails, any form of communication. Okay, so the most effective way to prevent phishing scams is to be exceedingly careful about who and what you engage with whenever you're online. Pause and check the authenticity of every email sender's contact, especially on something like Discord, where you have numbers attributed to accounts, right? I think though they kind of moved forward with a new model where you actually own like your username. So if the person doesn't have your exact username, right, that's going to be a scam. I've almost fallen for. I mean, I think honestly it's a better system than what they had before, because anybody could have wrote their name as anybody else, and the only identifier was the number of their account that would separate them from that person, right? So mine was the Mad Composer number 1413. If you had someone else reach out to you, the Mad Composer number 4071, right? That's not me, right? But some people who don't know that are going to look at just say the Mad Composer, because that's not the first thing that you see. You don't see number 1413 or 4071. You have to go and look into their account and see that number. So I'm really appreciative of Discord, because I think they understood that people were impersonating many others quite a lot. And so now I get fewer and fewer messages from people, because I think this new way of having a Discord username is actually being much more effective. So anyway, I want you to be just very, very conscious of that. Take a look at who's sending it to you. This is some same thing like if you got an email. What is the email address? Where is it coming from? How is it addressing you, right? Is the spelling correct? Is it like grammatically weird, right? These sorts of things, all of these like red flags that can come up, right? And many times it's going to be, again, like they said, just like an urgent message. It's going to be like they want to get it to you because they say, oh my God, this is happening right now. We need this right now. And so when you see that, pause for a second and say, wait, why is this being in such an urgent message? Most of the time, urgency is a red flag, okay? So pause and check the authenticity. And every hyperlinked URL, any other identifying information for red flags before engaging, and skew towards caution when you're unsure of what to do. Since phishing attacks are through human error, tools such as two-factor authentication or a password manager can protect you from doing a dumb mistake, okay? Because it is a dumb mistake, and that can cost you dearly. It has cost people millions of dollars. There are people who have had things like Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs only on their like Apple Wallet or something like that. And all of a sudden, one day, they didn't secure it, and they were like, oh, it's always people that are like, it's never going to happen to me. It'll probably happen to somebody else. And then what happens? Bam, it happens to you. And you're like, holy crap. And then you're sorry for everything, right? Many people have put their life savings into this kind of stuff. I'm not one of those people, but a lot of people have. And it's very, very important that if you're trying to look at such an unregulated industry as crypto for the future of the world economy, because you believe in its ethos, you believe in where it's going, the trajectory and the trends, you believe in all that stuff, that's great. But then if you don't take action to really secure your stuff, how can you say that you're a serious investor? Because for real, if you don't understand how you're going to protect in the new economy, like this is all about forward-thinking, future-proofing your name, your reputation, your finances. I mean, this is everything. your digital identity. I mean, that's where this is going. Everything's becoming a digital identity. So you want to make sure that you got your stuff, your ducks in a row. Because when it gets to a point where it's going to count, you want to make sure that you can pull through, okay? It's one of those... security is just one of those things that people always... and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I always see it in my experience where people always look at it as a forethought or a back burner idea, because it's not something that is an immediate... it doesn't have an immediate result, It's always something that could happen, but maybe won't happen. So people are like, oh, a ledger is, $150. I could use that for something else for now. I'll get a ledger later, or I'll get a YubiKey later, or I'll get this later, and then what happens? That's I have another horror story for you too. Here, my cousin's wedding, right? He had an entire registry gift thing for his wedding, and people, were sending him money and all that good stuff, and he just didn't take the money out after a period of time. And what happened? Somebody hacked his account and took his entire wedding registry. It's heartbreaking. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, don't trust third parties first off. Third parties are always the worst. Self-custody your stuff. Put it in some place where you can control. And if you don't, this is going to, kiss it goodbye. I look at it as kind of like data in a sense too. It's like, your data doesn't exist unless it's in 3 places. That's why even though, my camera's not working today and I've got computer problems all over here and this side of things, I'm using a backup computer right now, and I'm using, I've got 3 places where all my data is backed up to, so I'm not losing out on any type of information, any sensitive information. You got to live by these rules, man. Some rules are just so important to live by. Okay. Any questions or thoughts or comments? Let's hear from you guys for a second. Anybody have any horror stories they'd like to share?
Hey, Suicidal here. I don't have a horror story, but I do kind of want to point out that just like the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs and some of the more successful picture art projects that were worth a lot of money, a lot of ETH, once those got successful, people just got to realize that they got targeted, and then you can see the addresses behind who owns those. And once Xeno starts taking off and producing good returns for their investors, people just need to be aware that Xeno is also going to start coming under a lot of sight from these people looking to take your money.
Absolutely.
And, so they got to be super vigilant, super aware, and just to stay safe, because people are going to start getting targeted.
Absolutely. Yes, no, for sure. It's one of those things where, you're investing and putting your money into projects right now, Xeno being one of them, at a bear market where there's not a lot of attention on us right now. But come time when, like Suicidal was saying, we start really distributing rewards and showing this is like working for people, and it's becoming very, very profitable for people. One, that's great for you, but that also means that you're going to get more attention from people you don't know, from people who want to get what you have, right? Because the thing about blockchain, right, and NFTs is that they need to access your wallet in order to steal from you. So you're going to be approached by many people who want to either do a trade with you or this or that. Just remember that you have the leverage. You have the leverage here. So it's always be looking at it as people want what you have first. Okay? I was approached by even people who were like, hey, I'll give you these NFTs for your Hydra Whale or, your Xeno. And I'm like, no, no, these are not for sale. No, I don't care. You gotta be like Suicide said, very vigilant and stay very, very focused on what it is that you have here in your possession. I think, digital gold in its own right. So, yeah, great point. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Here's another thing that would happen, because this happened to me too. When they impersonate you, they send you a DM stating that they're an admin from the particular project that you could be interested in. So they could be like, "Oh, I'm from Mining," and then they have you click on a link, or which then authorizes access to your wallet. And then what happened to me is they ended up taking out the money, the USDC that I had just won from a Twitter space. So even winning stuff also puts you at a target too.
Absolutely. Any form of notoriety. Crypto is so easy to find people because of blockchain. It's going to make you a target, especially if you're someone who's won something and it's publicly announced, those types of things. It's very difficult to avoid that. So you just have to be very, very cautious and just being very aware of how you interact with people. Who do you let into your inner circle, right? Make sure is on places like Twitter that you don't necessarily follow everybody. Follow the people that you really respect, follow the people that you want to interact with, and make sure that anybody who interacts with you unknowingly gets filtered. Okay, these types of precautions, I can't overstate how common scams are. They're the most prominent thing in these spaces, more than brute hacks. It's very hard to brute hack a wallet on blockchain unless you have sensitive information that can get you there. Okay, so let's take a look at wallet authentication. So once you purchase cryptocurrency, you must decide whether to use a custodial or non-custodial wallet. Okay, so a non-custodial wallet is where you have sole control of your private keys. That's like you giving yourself sovereignty here in a sense. So you control your crypto and prove the funds are yours. While there is no need to trust a third party when using a non-custodial wallet, that means you are solely responsible for not losing your keys and requires that you take your own precautions to protect your funds. Okay. With a custodial wallet, that's another party controls your private keys. It's responsible for crypto key storage. And in other words, you're essentially trusting a third party to secure your funds and return them if you want to trade or send them somewhere else. So while a custodial wallet lessens personal responsibility, it requires trust in the custodian that holds your funds, which is usually something like a cryptocurrency exchange. Many people have lost money with custodial wallets. Just look at the history of exchanges like Mt. Gox, FTX, right? Bitfinex, whatever. There's so many examples out there where people have lost so much money on custodial wallets. Now, another form of wallet authentication as well is some wallets have another layer of two-factor authentication access. This is why I love Zelcore. Okay, Zelcore has something called a decentralized two-factor authentication process, where you take, I think, a little bit of Flux. I think it's on the Flux network. And they actually, when you sign up for Zelcore, they give you a little bit of Flux to be able to do this feature. You basically tell Flux you want to create a two-factor authentication method that's attached to your Zelcore wallet. And then that way, you have to always remember this, PIN number that you give yourself so that you can access your Zelcore. If you forget that PIN, nobody has access at all. Okay, it's like a YubiKey essentially. You have to be the only one who knows what that pin is. So just be very, very aware that there are other tools that can also be detrimental to accessing your own crypto. But if you're very on top of your stuff, you know, and you're like, you know, you're a hardware wallet aficionado like I am, and you want to use YubiKeys and all that good stuff. This is why I use Zelcore for stuff like Cadena, because Cadena doesn't have a hardware wallet solution just yet. Okay, that's still in the works. So getting something like Zelcore allows me to have that extra layer of security, so nobody can access my Cadena wallet just by, you know, finding, you know, some sort of you know, key somewhere else, whatever, however that might happen. Just be aware of that. So that's why I like using Zelcore. So crypto key storage, like hot wallets and cold wallets. We talked about this in the last class, but let's do a quick recap. Basically, web-based wallets, mobile wallets, and desktop wallets are basically mostly hot wallets, meaning they are connected to the internet. And so among them, web wallets are the least secure, though all crypto hot wallets are vulnerable to online attacks. A benefit to hot wallets, though, is the ease of use. Because they're always online, there's no need to transition between offline and online to make a cryptocurrency transaction. That said, users who hold large amounts of cryptocurrency typically won't keep significant amounts of crypto in hot wallets. Okay, so cold storage, on the other hand, are much more secure. And this is actually kind of what was in the beginning with Bitcoin, right? If you got Bitcoin Core was technically like a cold wallet solution, because what Bitcoin Core would store the key on a hard drive. Now, here was the problem, right? Hard drives die over time, right? So if you had not backed up your key to a different hard drive in a certain amount of time, remember, your data doesn't exist unless it's in 3 places, right? So people who didn't back up their Bitcoin Core wallet to 3 places on different drives in their home, sorry, if that drive died, you know, you had mined 1,000 Bitcoin in 2009, it's gone, right? And it's been such a tragedy for so many users. Okay, so cold wallets have their own inherent danger. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, you know, it's probably not going to happen now. You know, it's something I can put off later. But again, it never happens to you until it does. So it just assume that the universe at one point in time is going to throw this your way. So do it now. Get it out of the way. Back up your stuff, right? Stealing from a cold wallet would usually require physical possession of the cold wallet, as well as many associated pins or passwords that must be used to access those funds. So most hardware wallets are cold wallets and live on devices that look like a small to medium-sized USB stick. Oh, sorry about the cops. They're after me. I'm sorry. A cold wallet is technically the more secure method, but less convenient for new users. So in the beginning, for anybody who wants to, you know, get into wallet storage, I mean, hot wallets are the easiest to kind of set up first. You know, whenever I do my classes outside of Zeno, and I, you know, do in my universities, I do like little exercises, and I show students how to set up a hot wallet with MetaMask, right? Because many people haven't had the exposure to crypto the way like you guys have, right? So that's the first thing I like to do. But when we start getting a little bit deeper into things like this, I start saying, hey, look, let's start looking at things like cold storage, or, you know, hardware storage. You know, what is the difference? These are sorts of questions that you want to be more knowledgeable about, so that you can create the best kind of solution for yourself in the future. 1 second, folks. Hold on. Okay. So, last but not least, whitelisting. This is a last-ditch line of defense. So in a sense where if somebody were to hack your accounts, right, and they got through certain things, and let's say you didn't have two-factor authentication or anything like that, you can whitelist your accounts where you would essentially say, okay, I only want this crypto exchange to send to this wallet address, right? And if it's going to be changed, it needs to be verified via your email or whatever. So it's one more step that the hacker would have to do in order to get that crypto off that exchange and into their own wallet, right? If you don't have any white listings, I recommend you go ahead and do that now and just make sure that you have your wallets up to date, the things that you want the most to be used, right? Especially if it's like a Ledger or a Trezor or hardware wallet that you're going to deposit your funds into and you know it's going to be, you know, secure for a very long amount of time. These sorts of things are just kind of like the last line of defense, okay? So keep this in mind, as a digital native asset, crypto is very vulnerable to online attacks. So, you know, give as many obstacles for your hacker as possible. More often than not, they'll be demotivated to continue trying to hack if you have so many, you know, firewall blocks, or if you want to call it that, or just and as many obstacles in their way as possible. It's going to be very frustrating for them. You know, they have to be really, really motivated to really get that from you if that was the case. And many of these things, right, you know, like a hardware wallet, like they can't access it unless they have your wallet, period. So this is a really, really, really crucial step, just to make sure that you have your last line of defense just in case. You can actually also do this if you're mining crypto, for example. This is why I like Brains Pool for Bitcoin mining, because they actually have a whitelist feature where it's cemented. You know, once you have your wallet there, you have to go through so much to be able to change that. And there's like an entire cooldown period, like you have to wait like a week for it to change over to the new wallet and all this kind of stuff. So that is awesome. I really, really love that about Brains Pool. So if you're mining Bitcoin at home, that's why I use Brains. I recommend it. So without further ado, that's the conclusion to my presentation today. I don't think there's anything after this. Yes, there's not. Let's open the floor for about 10 minutes. Let's talk about it. What did you learn today? Is there something that you learned today that you haven't taken precaution over that you think you're going to do now? What are your thoughts? Let's hear from you guys.
Hey, Matt Composer, Suicidal here again. I appreciate this last slide here that you got up for whitelisting. I never considered that before, so that's actually pretty neat. Thank you.
You got it, man. I'm happy to hear. It's one of those things where you don't necessarily really look too deep into your wallet addresses, so much so. But yeah, each exchange has the ability to do a whitelist, and they also equate it to like saving addresses as well. But it's a little bit more than just saving an address. You go to your settings, and you can do this in KuCoin. You can do this, I think, in Coinbase as well. And you can just say, hey, these are the addresses that I absolutely only want to send to. And it goes to anything different. It's going to block it, or it's going to have required approval or something of that sort. So yeah, definitely take a look into whitelisting. It's a great step beyond all the other things that we've talked about. Anybody else want to share?
If no one else is going to share, I do have another question for you.
Okay.
Outside of, I know some previous training that you've done, and I talked to you about it then. I know you're pretty good on the back channel stuff for people talking on Ledger and stuff like that. Any news that the normal folks want to know about with Cadena and Ledger?
No,
as far as
they still haven't released any information about Cadena, but I'll look up any maybe last minute stuff right now and see what they've got going while I'm waiting for anybody else to contribute to this conversation.
Yeah, I just heard that it was getting closer. So, and then the one I haven't looked up yet is Nervos on Ledger that you know of. I mean, I could do my own research, and I was planning on doing that after the class, but if you had the simple yes or no answer, that was going to save me some time.
Nervos is available on Ledger. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, but you can't use Nervos with Ledger Live. So you can't just, you can't just use that Ledger app. You have to download Neuron, and then you can access the Nervos app on your Ledger through Neuron. So it's a direct connection to the Neuron wallet. It's not like anything else that you would do with Ledger Live.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I see another person here, Mikey.
Yeah, I just have a question about the Treasure wallet. Do you know if it handles Cadena?
Trezor. No, I don't think Cadena has any hardware wallet as of right now.
Okay, because I was shopping for one and I put the coin in and it says it handles it, but then I'm hearing that it doesn't. That's why I was just wanted to make sure.
Let's take a look at Trezor.
I think it says one of them handles like 1,400 coins, different coins.
Here we go. Trezor.io. Let's take a look. Product or learn. Let's see, support. And let's take a look at just Cadena. See if we can find any information here. Yep. No support just yet. They don't have support. Let's see here. Supported coins list. Yeah. No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Right.
go ahead.
No, I was just trying to find the easiest way to have as few wallets as possible.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm super into Ledger in my personal experience, but yeah, Cadena is not supported by Trezor. So you're going to just have to be dealing with that for now. I just, like I said, I recommend Zelcore because Zelcore does have a decentralized two-factor authentication method. So if you're and you can also use your hardware wallet on Zelcore as well, like a Ledger or Trezor, and you can access the same information, but you'd basically have two different wallets on Zelcore. One is your hardware, one is your other one that would, let's say, support Cadena. That's how I would look for it for now until things change. Then you can transmit and migrate your, Cadena NFTs and coins over to your hardware, but we just have to be patient. There's nothing we can do on that front.
okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, all great questions. All great questions. I'm sure they're working on these things now. I mean, Cadena, and the thing about them is it took also a while for like Cardano to get worked on by Ledger, and that's because it's Haskell code. It's a different type of underlying language than something like Solidity and all these other things. It's easy. That's why a lot of cryptocurrency coins are using EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine, because it's almost like a fast pass to getting on something like a Ledger. But and that's why why we even did it here too, right? We're using Ethereum. Ethereum is so much more accessible, and you can secure your NFTs quickly. But you want to use something like Cadena or Nervos or you're going to use Cardano, and Cardano finally has Ledger Live, but it took a while for them to do it. It took them years. And now you can finally access everything on Cardano just on your ledger. But it's one of those things where it's a complicated language. Haskell is not it's not easy to learn from the ground up, and they have to build it from the ground up, understanding that language. So we gotta just be patient, guys. But they'll get there. I know. I'm sure for them it's a race, because the first person who gets a Ledger or Trezor or just a hardware version for Cadena, it's going to be a big sale for them, and I'm sure they're all actively working on it right now to make it happen. So, and get yourself, if you got a hardware wallet, get yourself a backup too. These things, they do die. They are mechanical devices. Don't just take for granted that they'll live forever. They do die. Awesome. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, quick question. Doesn't XRP kind of fall into the similar pool as like Cardano, because it doesn't use like the Ethereum virtual machine? It's kind of their own blockchain, their own network and everything else?
Sure. I mean, yeah, they're not using the same code either. That's the same thing with other ones like Polkadot as well. Like they use Substrate or Rust or whatever you want to call it. Blockchains all over are using different, and some of them are using different languages altogether. Some of them are using Python or whatever. So you just got to be aware that that's a problem we have with cryptocurrencies these days and ages, because it's all about interoperability, and trying to make a one size fits all is pretty difficult, because everybody's got their own version of what blockchain should look like. So yeah, it's very true, very, very true. And that's just the nature of the beast at this moment. So we have to just deal with that. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Somebody was saying that like basically Ethereum is kind of like the '96 Honda Civic of blockchains. Like you can put anything in there, put anything on top of it. A bunch of stuff has been worked out, but all of the other blockchains are like different manufacturers. Like XRP is almost like Mercedes, how they do their own thing, and then somebody like Cardano is kind of like, I don't know, Ford, where they do their own thing and they have their own language. So I mean, this is just kind of where we're at now. But I heard a little bit about like Omnichain is supposed to be able to interoperable port different cryptocurrencies, or at least be able to exchange them.
I am not familiar with it, but please send me a message and give me some information about that. I'd like to know.
Okay, well, I mean, from what I was seeing, it's kind of like in its beginning steps, but they're saying that like Omnichain is supposed to help with interoperability. I think that's their whole focus. So I haven't done too much research on it, but I've been seeing that name and that icon pop up at a few different places. So I'm definitely going to start doing more research on there.
Cool. Yeah. It's hard to say what will be the thing that does it for all. I don't know if there ever will be. I think we just have to have maybe perhaps a library of coding languages that we understand, and then it's up to developers to also communicate with others on how to convert information from one blockchain to another. It's a very complicated process. It's not, I mean, that's what, Nervos and all these different types of blockchains that prioritize interoperability try to do, but it's up to people like Cadena, Cardano, Ethereum to actually talk to Nervos and say, we want to use you in order to bridge to Cadena, to bridge to Cardano, and etc., or vice versa. So we don't know what the future of that looks like. It's all a mishmash of information. So I think it's smart to not, necessarily look at one source for doing everything, because I just don't think that's going to happen. I think it's all a matter of how popular, right, are certain blockchains becoming? What's their use case? Where are they going to be profound in their approach? And are they open to collaboration? Like, that's a key aspect to all of this. If a blockchain company or foundation is not open to interoperability as much or open to communication as much, I mean, that's going to kill it. I don't know about you, but I'm a part of as an ambassador for a company called Opulus, and what they do is they're for the music industry, right? They're trying to fractionalize music copyright, and they're using Algorand, but Algorand doesn't have a really great support system, so they're already looking to offload from Algorand to another blockchain because they just prioritized, the engineers on Algorand are brilliant technicians, but they're not good at communications, and it's just another element to building this thing where you could have the best engineers in the world, but if nobody knows who the hell you are, it doesn't matter. So we gotta just think about that too. How are these blockchain foundations organizing in order to create the best product, but not just create the best product, but also be the most, approachable and communicative products in the world too. That's really why, honestly, Ethereum wins. Because Ethereum, yes, it had the network effect. It got there first, beyond what Bitcoin did. But you got guys like Vitalik Buterin who are constantly, expanding. And he's say what you want about Vitalik, but the guy created a monster. So we got to give credit where credit's due. And Ethereum, yes, it's the old Honda Civic, but damn, Honda Civics last for freaking a long time. So
exactly. There's so many Honda products out there that if you need a new motor, you can just throw one in there, or you can put a motor from Japan or different size motors. Like, everything has been worked through with those. And I think it also goes to what you want to prioritize. Like, some blockchains want to prioritize security more, which means that sometimes the transactions will be slower, but then you got ones that want to be speed, but stuff is a little bit less secure. It's just how they want to prioritize stuff, and that's what I'm starting to learn.
Yeah. It's the open market, right? You have a whole bunch of different types of blockchains that specialize in certain things, and that's why it might be better to choose one over another. Not everybody has to be on Ethereum. Not everybody has to be on, Bitcoin. You can use them for what they're good at, and that's fine. So yeah, great conversation about this. It's totally viable, especially when considering, like, how do you want to secure your stuff too, and what do you want to invest in and whatnot. It's all very relevant. So yeah, thank you for opening up the conversation.
No problem. Yeah, I'm thinking about it like Bitcoin is more for like store.
Like store of value.
Yeah, Bitcoin is more like store of value, but then like Ethereum is more for certain moves. But then, like, day to day, I think I end up using Polygon more just because it's so much cheaper to do transactions and stuff on there. And it's slowly opening up, but it's really secure. A lot of big people put money behind it. So it's looking like that might be kind of slept on. It might be up for a big move, but it's mostly Ethereum.
Right. Absolutely, man. Well, guys, is there any other questions or comments before we end the class today? Thanks for all your input, by the way. All right, thank you so much. Let's call it here. Let me go ahead and stop the recording, and I will see you guys next time, where we'll go a little bit deeper on security and how we can utilize certain aspects of it too.